Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be going over our process for making a double wall wind-on leader with a looped end today. This is going to be a new product that we're going to be introducing at the PCS show in March of 2023. So if you're viewing this in 2030, there's probably a better way to do it by then. But for now, this is how we do it, and it's an extremely strong connection. We'll be editing down this video to give you all the highlights of it because it's a relatively long process. But the most important parts are to know what tools you need, the materials that we use, and how to get the wind-on lengths to be correct. So today we have our measuring table here all set up. It could be anything. You can use a piece of wood or whatever. We have a really nice table that we're able to use here at the shop. But we use just a seamstress ruler, and it rolls out really nice. It's very portable, and so that's why we're using that. Our initial piece for this construction is a stretch, 8-foot stretch of hollow Spectra. It's 16 strand or 16 carrier. Some people know it as 16 carrier Spectra. It's very easy to do insertions with this material. This happens to be JB Line 1. They're a big supporter of our company, and so we like to give them a shout out when we have an opportunity. But this is an extremely durable, very strong 16 carrier hollow braid. This one is for 80 pound, and so that's what we're starting with. And I can tell you that in this particular construction, using an insertion needle is way easier than not. But from 100-pound test and above, usually the leader material is rigid enough for us to just go straight to doing the insertion without having to use a needle, and it goes right in. So you'll see as you start to work with these materials how hard or easy it is to do these certain processes, but we're just gonna dive right into it. So here's our 8-foot stretch of Spectra. We're gonna use the ruler on the table to measure out 42 inches. Okay, that's gonna be our initial insertion point. Was it 42 inches? We'll edit this part out, but I don't.
38?
No.
42. Yeah.
42. So, okay. So we're gonna start off with 42 inches, and we're gonna grab that spot there, and we're actually going to reverse the Spectra back into itself. So one of the tools that we're using, we use a Toro Tamer from Charkbait, Toro Tamer medium latch needle. It seems to be about the right size for these heavier line tests, and we're gonna feed it back into itself from that insertion point at 42 inches. So you take the Spectra, I don't know if you guys can see that, but we're gonna bunch it up and loosen up that Spectra. So we make a loose point there. We're gonna push that needle into that hollow braid, and we're gonna feed the tag end back into it. So it's gonna make it a double wall wind-on leader. So we're just getting it started, getting this needle into the hollow braid, and it's a little bit tough when you're old and you can't see. And it has to be quiet. so you can get that in there. Sometimes when it's hard to get your needle started, you have to kind of roll the Spectra in your fingers to get it started over the tip of the needle. But you can see it's starting to feed itself onto the needle here. We're gonna get it probably 6, 8, 10 inches onto the needle just as it's starting to bunch up, and then we'll grab the other tag end. Again, this is a double wall, so we're gonna have an inner sleeve and an outer sleeve. We're gonna flip open the latch, and we'll get a little picture of that so you can see what it looks like. But here's our tag end. We're gonna hook that around the the latch. And close the latch. So now that's captured in that latch needle, okay? It was. So we have it in the latch needle, and then we're gonna feed this spectra over the captured spectra loop, okay? Again, sometimes you need to twist it, get it fed over. We'll keep feeding this, and you'll see how this creates two walls of spectra on this one stretch. This forms the loop that you'll use to connect it to your main line. Thankfully, this is feeding really nicely. Most 16 carrier spectras actually feed pretty nicely on these needles, so it's not too much trouble. If you do have a hard time getting the needle through, you may have to pass a spectra opener tool through the spectra first. I also want you to know that if the spectra is used, it could be twisted. You need to wet the spectra and pull it tight so it unravels itself. Wetting the used spectra after it has the salt on it will also help to do the insertion. But all these materials that we're using today, they're all brand new, so it's no problem. So we're almost to the end there. We're almost to where the needle's gonna come out. There it is. We're gonna pull this, and that spectra where we latched it is now inside. So we have effectively created our loop. That's our loop right there. And we need to actually hold this in place so that we don't lose the loop into itself. So being Asian, we always have some chopsticks ready for us to use for all kinds of different stuff. So that's what we're gonna use. It's going to tighten right up around the chopstick. And we're gonna pull that tight. Okay, so there's your outer and inner core of the connection. This part here is going to be where we do the insertion, and we'll have to use one of these. Joe has been prepping the end of this, so I don't know if you could see it, but I'll show you what we're doing. That is probably pretty close to being perfect. The end of the filament leader, whether it's fluorocarbon or monofilament, has to be sanded down so that you don't have any burrs on it. So as you're doing the insertion or even fishing, you don't want there to be any rough edges. So Joe has taken the emery board that we have in the kit and just kind of rubbed it around there and doled out but deburred the whole tip of that fluorocarbon. This is 80-pound fluorocarbon. It's a leader material that we're going to be introducing along with the wind-ons at the show. We don't sell the lighter lines, but we do have blue water big game stuff available. We're just going to unwind this a little bit because we don't need the whole thing out. We're going to take this and now use our insertion needle. Again, this is a Toro Tamer 80-pound insertion needle, and put that right inside the needle. Okay, just like that. Now you might think, oh, that thing's gonna come out. It really doesn't. I thought the same thing, but once you have that thing butted up against this tip end inside the needle, it's pretty secure. So we're gonna take the spectra and we're gonna feed that into the end of the inner core that we just created. So, and hopefully your hands work better than mine, so you won't be dropping everything like I am. And for those of you who wear reading glasses, tilt your head way back so you can see it. Because I know I need to. So again, if you need help to get that started, just twist it in your fingers. It'll help to start it to move down the needle, and it'll give you a chance to load some of it onto the needle without too much trouble. We'll try to take some close-up shots of the spectra as we do the insertion. You'll actually see how sometimes the spectra is mildly twisted, and that could actually cause the needle to poke through the side of the spectra. You don't want that. Just back it off, run it in your fingernails, it'll straighten it out, and you just keep on inserting that. Now, you remember we had the inner core and the outer core. We're going to do this insertion about, I guess it's about 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet. Once we're all the way to the bunched up end of the outer core, we're just gonna keep inserting this all the way. It's gonna keep feeding the needle and the fluorocarbon into the hollow core. You'll see it's getting closer and closer. The chopstick helps as a second pair of hands. You just keep feeding it. And this is not even the trickiest part. This is just us getting started. The more you do this, the easier it's gonna get. So you can see we're getting close now. We're almost to where we're gonna pull the needle out of the hollow core. But as we get closer, it's showing that more and more that it's twisted. It's getting a little bit harder to push the needle in, but just keep twisting the spectra until you're able to get it all the way. Okay, so there we are. We're at the end there. We're gonna pull that needle out of the spectra, out of the side of the spectra. We're gonna pull this out, and you see how that fluorocarbon is coming out of that needle? We're gonna actually pull the needle off, and we're going to move it backwards on the inside the hollow spectra. So see how it's already gotten closer? We're just gonna keep on pulling it until it's just inside. So now we have the outer core, the inner core, and it's inserted. Take this, and we'll start backing the outer core back over that already inserted spectra, okay? So now there's 2 layers of spectra with the filament leader, whether it's mono or fluoro, with the line inserted. But you can see that we have a difference of lengths. This is the double core, this is the single core. We need to get those evened up. So what's gonna happen here is we're gonna be pulling the inner core towards the outer core. You see that? See how I pulled that up a little bit? We're gonna pull this and we're gonna work this up, okay? Effectively pulling the leader material back out of the spectra. But what's gonna happen is it's gonna allow that spectra to, you're just gonna keep pushing it down. Keep pushing it down, right? And then we're gonna start opening up our loop. See how that's coming up? We're gonna start to push that down. And it's gonna start to even up with the end of the spectra. It's already gotten quite a bit closer. You can see that, right? So we're gonna just keep doing that. We're gonna keep moving this loop. We're gonna keep opening up the loop. We're at the point where the loop is at the maximum where the leader material is. Keep pulling this back down so it's tightening up the spectra onto the leader. getting really, really close now. So we went from about 8 inches to now it's just about, I don't know, what is that, 3 inches maybe. So we're just gonna pull this back just a little bit more. Feed this back up the line, okay? Reverse it back up the line. What happens is that ends up making more room for the loop to open up. So you're gonna have a larger loop now. You take this and you just keep feeding that back down. You see how it's tightened up against that leader material, and then this is all loose. This is the outer layer now is going to be pulling closer to even. I think one more shot. We're about 1.5 inches now, so one more shot and we should be about even. So we'll pull that tight. Essentially, like I said, what we're doing is just pulling the leader material back out of the inner sleeve. It's about all I can compare it to. It's just extending the size of the loop. Oh, we're really close now. You just have to keep working at it until it has a good fit. Both ends of the spectra, you can see there that we're within about 1 inch now. So you just keep working it until you can get that all the way even. And then I'll show you how with the Sato Crimps it finishes off really, really nicely. Yeah, people probably thought that it was really easy to make these double wall wind-ons, but it's just very, very time consuming, and it's all done by hand. There's really no way to get it done with a machine. If I'm not mistaken, some of the wind-ons that you see on the market that come from Asia are not hand tied. So they don't have this double wall construction. They don't have the clean finish to them. They're usually served or nail knotted. These we're going to be using the Sato Crimps. So we're within about 1/4 inch. So I think what we'll do in this case, instead of trying to get it any closer, what we'll do is we'll apply the crimps and we'll crimp it down and we'll trim it back so that it's finished. So now what we have to do is use a crimp installer. This is my crimp box. It's a mess, but I use it all the time, so that's why. But this small little 27 pound single strand wire, it's a stainless steel wire. We use it for our wahoo fishing, but it's also handy for doing this kind of work. It's a V cut, so it's just a single strand. We're gonna put it through the loop. We're gonna fit this with we're gonna start with 80 pound crimps and see if that's the correct size. So we have our Sato Crimps, 80 pound. It's really not rated by line test. It's more rated by diameter. So keep that in mind when you're using this. But for a double wall application, we're probably talking about an 80 pound crimp. So we'll put we loop that on. We're going to put both of these ends through the crimp. We'll put 2 crimps on. pull them right down onto that spectra, okay? That's all that wire does. That little tool is so handy for installing the crimps on this leader. So now we're gonna take the crimp, we're gonna pull it over both walls of the leader, if it'll fit. You see that it's just starting to get over the leader material. This is the right size. It should be quite tight. And if you can't pull it down with your fingernails, I usually use my crimping plier. These are the ones that come with the kit. And I'll put this on the back side of the crimp, not on the crimp, but on the spectra through the smallest bore. Let me show you that if I can get that on the camera. So, you have it right here in the smallest bore. We're going to pull that down. You see that? It's really quite tight, and it's actually pulling that leader even tighter than what we had set it at. So you're going to pull it down to where it's almost at the end of the spectra. You want it close, but you don't want to pull it off the spectra. Okay, so that is about as close as you need to make it. You see that? Both layers are there. We're going to trim those back, and we have a way to finish that. So I'll show you that in just 1 second. But we'll get this second crimp pulled down. And this one should go down a little bit easier. Spectra in the smallest bore. Okay. Pull it down a little bit far, but that's how it finishes up. You can see there's 2 crimps. The fuzzy end here, we'll trim it back a little bit. This one's actually a little bit too far, so let me move that back up just a little bit. It didn't really matter, but I like to have a little bit of separation there. This connection is 100%. There's 2 walls of 80-pound spectra on top of 80-pound fluorocarbon. And all you now have to do is just take the crimping plier right down the center of the crimp. You don't have to do anything but crimp it right down the middle. About that hard. You don't have to throw your back out to do these crimps. You just put that crimp right in the middle of the crimping plier, just like that. And we'll get some close-ups of what this actually looks like, but you can see once it's crimped around the leader material, the crimp itself has these fine little wings that come around the edge and over across the entire length of the crimp itself. It goes through the guide super smooth. Haven't had any trouble at all with it chipping the guides, and there's no problem with it burring up and catching your fingers. So I really, really like the way this is performing now. We used to have a different plier, and there was a different process altogether for using these crimps, but we've kind of refined it, and it really has made for a much easier process to get the connection complete. So now, what we're gonna do, I actually don't have any tack glue here, so So we're gonna take this and I'm gonna glue between the crimps. Actually, maybe I should cut this first. Can I have the, oh, yeah. So we're gonna trim this, and what you wanna do is you just wanna fluff that spectra up so it kind of looks like it's all, you know, just blown out. But you're gonna give it a little haircut. Just be sure not to cut your fluorocarbon leader. You're just gonna trim that back and pull it off, you know, pull this back and just clean it up a little bit. It's about all you really need to do. Take all the fuzz off of it. Then, technology is a wonderful thing, and it's really amazing what can be done. But this product here, it's a UV adhesive. It's available on Amazon. You can buy it just about everywhere. It was originally designed for bowstring serving. And so it's a really, really good product, very easy to use. We just dab a very small amount on the fuzzy part of that spectra. I mean, just a little bit. It's barely anything. You probably can't even see it on the camera, but it's just a small dab of glue. It's pretty thick, so you're gonna, you know, you don't want to over squeeze the tube. And so that's actually a liquefied, a gel consistency. And then you take your UV light that you use for all your jig fishing at night, you hit it with the UV light, same flashlight that you use to light up your glow jigs, same thing. You just hit that and it's set, okay? Very flexible, very easy to use. And then between the crimps, to make sure that you've got a good bond, we sell a CA glue, super glue, and we just dab that on there. Oops. You just dab that on there between the two crimps, and all you're doing is just saturating the spectra. So once you have that CA glue or super glue, you tap off the excess. That is your connection, and that thing can catch a cow tuna, if you can believe it. Right there, that's your whole thing. So from start to finish, that's building a double wall wind-on. Like I said, you don't have to go through the trouble of making them yourself. We're gonna have them available at the show, but that will do it. You guys can use them for jig fishing. You can use them for bait fishing, long range stuff. We are providing a really great product for this kind of setup. So just let us know if you have any questions about it, or come see us at the PCS show. Thank you guys very much.